year. I don't think there's a more competitively deep league in America, quite frankly, and that's not a biased comment. I think the data stands for itself. And having been to, I was at a game pretty much every week. Some weeks I was at multiple games, and being out there, uh, the chatter is the chatter, right? Everybody knows how hard it was going to be to win this league this year because of the competitive depth, and we just have a phenomenal brand of football. You hear our athletic directors talk about it. We've talked about it. It's a tough ass league. Like it's just a gritty football league. And I think that's what made it so deep and so challenging this year. We're one of four FBS conferences that have at least four teams with nine or more wins. North Texas 11, Tulane 10, Navy and South Florida with nine. When your top four are a combined 39-8, I think that speaks to how tough this league is, how competitively deep we were, and certainly the results. The result. I think we're going to have a terrific championship game on Friday. If you look at the matchup, we have one of four conferences, four championships rather, that features two teams with double-digit wins. I think this is a higher profile championship game than the American has had in the past, and certainly it's one of the highest profile this year in all the championship games. We have the fourth best non-conference winning percentage, and that puts us behind only the Big Ten, SEC, and the Big 12. That says a lot about not only our coaches having the guts to schedule, but going out and actually competing and winning a lot of those games. I have no doubt in my mind the winner Friday night will be in the college football playoff. The data speaks for itself. I have faith in the committee. I think they're looking at the right information. And I think this game, in all respects, is for a slot in the CFP this year. The last couple of things I would say about, the two teams. When you look at North Texas, and, I typically will refrain from talking football because it's not a commissioner's job, but I am a football guy. When you look at this team, you're talking about one of the best offenses in America. Period, full stop. They led FBS in scoring. They have a redshirt freshman in Drew Mestermaker who's leading the country in passing yards. You have a true freshman in Caleb Hawkins who leads the nation in total touchdowns and scoring. And the job Eric Morris and his staff have done has really been remarkable. And I think I joked with Eric last year. I said, this is the greatest show on turf in our league. It's an exciting brand of football to watch. On the other side, Tulane, fourth straight conference championship game. They just continue to roll. Since the start of 22, Tulane's 42-12. And that's more than 75% of their games that they're winning. And 29-3 in conference regular season play. That's second only to Georgia, nationally. So my hat's off to Coach Summerall and his staff. They've been equally impressive. And I think it's really sets us up well for Friday night. We're excited to partner with a tremendous title partner on this game in LLH Healthcare. We've got a common thread, like we're a hugely accessible league, and they're a company that makes their products accessible to everyone. So it was a terrific fit. We'll have a great contingent there in New Orleans for the championship game, and we're looking forward to celebrating it with them. The last thing, because I know you guys are going to ask, is just about coaching carousel and changes. And here's what I would say, and I've said this to many of you when we talk about the transfer portal and other things. I'm not surprised by this. In fact, I had my eyes open coming in and expected this. So when other programs come knocking to speak to leadership and head coaches in the American, we expect that. Like this league is overflowing with talented people, from administrators to coaches to student athletes. And, the reality is, like, it's just a talented, tough, gritty league. And I think we have the ingredients that a lot of programs around America are looking for. Certainly I have great relationships with all of our head coaches, given my own football background. And as bittersweet as it is to see some of them move forward, I couldn't be happier for the four of the coaches that are moving on to new jobs. And you saw us celebrating them yesterday and thanking them for all the contributions they've made to the American. But, certainly begs a bigger issue about the calendar and what is the right timing for all this stuff to take place in order to make sure that we preserve and protect the integrity of the postseason and the integrity of the sport. And I'm sure that's something that's going to continue to be discussed amongst commissioners, so we can evolve in a way that makes the system more productive for everyone. Okay. So with that, we're pumped for the game Friday night. I hope to see some of your faces there. Tom, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Right. Thanks, Tim. We will, if you'd like to ask a question to Commissioner Pernetti, please use the raise hand feature. We will start with Dan Tortora.
Hi, Commissioner. How are you?
Hey, Dan.
To go off of what you were talking about here when you talk about the calendar and whatnot, the fact that you have coaches on both sides of this championship game with Eric Morris and John Summerall that stated that they're going to stay on, they're going to see them through the championship game if and when they are to make the college football playoff to stay there as well. Even though the calendar allows for coaches to be poached, the fact that these two coaches want to stay through the championship and see through this season, just what that means to you about the character of both of these gentlemen.
It says a lot. And it also speaks to the fact that there can be cooperation, between institutions when these changes take place. I really admire what John and what Eric are doing because I know the two of them really well. And I know this was table stakes for them, to finish out their seasons with their student athletes and finish the job. And you don't often see that. And I also think it speaks to the administration. Like you have to have a maturity about these situations, right? Like things are going to change and it's very easy to show people the door. What's harder is to finish the season, given all the momentum both of these teams have, going into the championship game. So I really admire what these coaches are doing, what these administrations have the guts to do, because they're going to be running coaching searches. These new coaches are going to be trying to get ready to get their new programs on wheels. It's a lot, but I also know that these two coaches in particular are prioritizing their student athletes and their experience. And make no mistake about it. Like I'm as excited. Someone said to me, well, how are your ADs doing? I'm like, our ADs are doing great. Like we have elite head coaching jobs in this conference. We do. I don't think there's any way to describe it other than that. And I think the candidates that are going to come to the party for these opportunities in the American is going to be a phenomenal list. And we've had we had five new coaches, count Blake Harrell, six this year. So we've got a little bit more turnover, but I know how everybody views the American. The fact that three of our coaches are leaving for SEC jobs, one is leaving for a Big 12 job. Like people are viewing the American as a place that has a lot of talent in the coaching ranks.
And then to follow up, when you look at both of these institutions, Eric Morris came in with North Texas and every single year has gotten them better and better, taking them out of the lower part of the American into the championship game, where the question with Tulane was, with seeing what Willie Fritz did, making that a successful program, would they be able to continue it? So to look at the body of work of Eric Morris taking a team out of the basement to the top, and then seeing John Summerall take the success of Tulane and continue that success, just what you see from both roads of both coaches.
You have to apply your brand of coaching. And I think anybody that thinks coaching is a black and white deal is not paying attention, because I think the best coaches have to institute a certain type of culture in the building, and then they have to recruit the talent in order to be able to execute on their plan. And I think there's some coaches too that are sort of set in, like they're going to do things, they're going to do their system no matter what they have in the locker room. But we've got coaches in our league that they're looking at the talent, they're adapting to who's in the locker room, they're bringing recruiting into play, and even working like what Eric's done a great job of, and John's done this as well. Is like the transfer portal is a two-way street. I get tired of hearing about like, oh, the American is the most poached league in America. The facts are the facts. But why do you think that is? Because there's more talent in this league than there are in any other league. But the transfer portal is a two-way bridge. And what John and Eric in particular have done this year is they brought a lot of talent back over the bridge into their programs. So, just in general, I think like John was a new coach just a couple seasons ago, and now we're going to have a little bit more turnover. But what's encouraging is all the new football coaches we had last year, four of them dramatically improved their programs from the prior year. I mean, if you just look at what Blake Harrell did at East Carolina, like they had more league wins. I think they had six more league wins than they've ever had since joining the American. So a lot of the talent that is flowing in, and I don't think with Tulane or Texas, USF, Memphis is going to be any difference. Like we're going to have these ADs are going to have a lot of great candidates to choose from.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
All right, our next question will be from Jonah Dillon.
Hey Tim, thanks for doing this. When back on the coaches, when you look at obviously the four people leaving, some of those schools obviously doing everything they could to try to retain them. Is there anything from a conference perspective that you would like to see in terms of being able to retain coaches when there is interest from other schools?
Is there anything I'd like to see to retain coach? Try to ask it again so I
I guess
understand it
I guess
better.
I'm just asking when you obviously you've talked about the coaches leaving and that being a
Yeah,
positive for the conference. I assume in a perfect world you like those types of coaches to stay, right? Is there any
sure.
or do you kind of view that as this is the natural situation where we want to be a developmental place, not just for players, but maybe for coaches as well?
Yeah, to be clear on what I said a couple minutes ago, Jonah, was what I said was I'm not surprised by it. Like if you had given me the choice and I could wave the magic wand and make the decision, I'd want to keep all four of those guys in the conference for sure, for as long as we possibly could. But that's not a reality of this business. I think it's a positive for the American to see the type of coaching talent we have inside the four walls of the league and the opportunities that are being presented to these coaches. And let's listen, at the end of the day, whether it's expansion or a coach taking a new job, the only person that can decide what's best, like all the fans are going to tell us what's best for these coaches, but these coaches are human beings with families and they've committed their lives to this. They're the only ones that can make the decision based on what they think is best for them. But yeah, look, selfishly, I'm not going to pretend like if I was given the choice, like I would want them all to stay. But what everybody also needs to understand is all four of these guys were in play for other jobs last year, and all four of them stayed. And I give credit to the administrations in those schools for stepping up, not only directly in sort of how they're helping the coach with their agreement or their compensation, but in a lot of places, compensation didn't change, but it changed for the assistants. And it changed that they were going to commit more money to revenue sharing. And I think that if you could just mute your phone if you're not talking, please. And in general, Jonah, I think that showed a lot last year because several of the names that are moving on to new jobs were in the mix for jobs last year and chose to stay.
All right, any other questions for Commissioner Pernetti?
So I got one more if that's all right, Tom.
Sure, go
Um,
ahead, John.
on football scheduling, we've seen obviously the opponents for next season. I'm wondering if you kind of just explain what the format is in terms of like protected rivalries and how that looks moving forward.
So the scheduling philosophy, we're looking at scheduling every single year. And, the thing about, I think this is a college football challenge in general, Jonah, is that the conferences are getting pretty big, which makes the scheduling a little bit harder, for everyone. But what I know is what I'm seeing our institutions do is we're continuing to stay aggressive in non-conference scheduling and scheduling against the autonomy conferences. And despite the fact a lot of them are moving, officially to 9 games, and whether it's next year or the following year, we still have a lot of opportunities to compete in those games. So, that's one of them. As it relates to protected rivalries, the thing we all have to get our arms around is something's not a rivalry because you say it is. Like rivalries are organic, right? They have to come to life on their own. And we could have some role in playing. All right, we're going to make sure that a certain game is played on a certain weekend every year, and we're going to do our part to try to manufacture it into a rivalry as well. But I do think the size of a lot of conferences makes some of that stuff challenging. I also think that we need to really have a hard look at, like, are there true rivalries in our league right now? And if there are, what are they? And if there are not, but there are some teams that make sense geographically that we want to turn into a rivalry, then we all have to play our part. But certainly when you have a 14-team league, not everybody's going to play each other every single year. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're doing our best to put the best games on the schedule possible. This year, I think Jamie Hickson and Shane Elder, our football staff, did an unbelievably good job in how they scheduled, because a lot of our premier games were in the premier slots. And we had a lot of exposure as a result of that. Like our aggregated viewership as a conference on all the ESPN platforms is up 20% this year. And I worked in media a long time. 20% is a monster number. And a lot of that had to do with how we scheduled. So what I tell you about the scheduling, Jonah, is we're constantly pulling it apart and putting it back together. But our goal is to make sure we're positioning the league for the maximum amount of exposure for, arguably its highest profile games, if not everything else. And this year, we're reaping the benefit of that.
All right, let's do one more for Commissioner Pernetti. Let's go to Sean McFarland.
Hi, Tim. You mentioned the football calendar and whether potential changes is there anything in your mind that you think could be changed or should be changed or you'd like to see addressed in the future to clean some things up?
Yeah, it's a good question, Sean. I think there's a lot of change that you'd like to see. You could see for student athletes and the transfer portal and how their opportunity to move is being managed, right? Like it's changing, it's evolving, and I think some of the evolution is important, to protect the integrity of the postseason. I don't think the coaching thing is any different. Why not take a page out of the professional sports leagues books and think about the timing of all this? Because like our goal is to continue to elevate college football. We're the second most popular sport in America, right? There's the NFL, there's college football, and there's everything else. But in order to do that, you have to make sure that all the time you spend building up to, like I talked to Jonah about scheduling, the right games, the right dates, the rivalries, the championship game. And then suddenly you go into this void where some of these teams may be coached by interim coaches or different coaches. And how does that work with the transfer portal? Like, will some of these kids be on the rosters for the postseason games? Like, there's a lot of things that factor into it. But I think if we're going to hold student athletes accountable to preserving the integrity of the postseason, which is what the changes in legislation are designed to do, then coaches should be held accountable as well. Otherwise, it becomes very disruptive. And the butt end of the stick typically is the student athletes. And I think our job at the end of the day, when we wake up and go to sleep, is to provide a great experience for student athletes. So, why not think about, like, coaches are going to change every year. Everybody knows that. The recruiting calendar plays in, signing day plays in. Like, everybody will tell you all the reasons why you have to make the change as soon as possible before the bowl games. But, what I would argue is it's creating more disruption than anything. Look at last year. Our league champion was going to play the Sun Belt champion in a bowl game, and the Sun Belt champion dipped out of the game saying that they had roster challenges because their coach moved on. Like, that stuff can't happen. And then we have to put our league champion on the field against a team with a losing record. Like, what kind of message does that send? So I think there's a lot that needs to be looked at here. And listen, it's not like we haven't been having these discussions as commissioners. We're having these discussions. Sometimes this change, it needs to happen a little bit more quickly than traditionally college sports has moved at a different pace, as we all know.